research methodology and report writing. Now let us begin by first defining the concept research. Research is something that has been with humanity right from the time of Adam and Eve. And it has been defined over time by different scholars, different individuals, and I want to believe that at the end of this particular course, you as a student should also be able to define the concept research using your own words based on your own understanding. But before we get there, let us look at the definitions that have been given by other scholars over time. Now let us start with a definition by Orotho and Combo that was given in 2002. They define research as the process of arriving at a dependable solution of the problems through the planned, systematic collection, analysis, and interpretation of data. That is by Orotho and Combo in 2002. Another definition was given by Kallinger in 1993, and Kallinger defines research as a systematic, controlled, empirical, and critical investigation of hypothetical propositions about presumed suppositions among natural phenomena. That is according to Kallinger. When we look at the element of hypothetical propositions, we are referring to the concepts that people have about issues that are yet to be verified. They are yet to be proved as true or false. Then another definition, the last that I would like to focus on, is the one that was given by Twichman in 1978. And Twichman describes research as a systematic attempt to provide an answer to questions. From all the three definitions that I've provided, you will realize that there are some common elements. The first one is the word process, meaning that research is a process. It is not something that just happens. It is something that is planned for. It is a process. Then secondly, we are saying that it is systematic, an indication that it is not haphazard. It is not something that happens by chance. It is not something that happens by wishful thinking. It has to be systematic. There is a definite way of carrying out research activities. Then we also have the idea of collection, data collection. We have processes of data collection, different methods of data collection, and therefore it is expected that the researcher must be conversant, must have an idea of what goes into the collection of data. Then we have analysis. Analysis here we are referring to the breaking down into parts of that information so that the individuals can be able to internalize that information before it is communicated to the world. And then lastly, we have interpretation. It is not just a matter of collecting data, collecting information. The person collecting information must be able to interpret it and have it apply to real life situation, provide meaning to it. That is what we mean by interpretation. And therefore, we can say or define the concept research as a systematic process of collecting, examining, and interpreting data. Now, we also have other related terms that we need to define, and the first one is proposal. I mentioned at the beginning that the student, is going to write a proposal that will eventually be translated into a thesis or a project, and that will determine your graduation from Mount Kenya University. So what is a proposal? A proposal can be defined as a statement of intent that tells us what you want to do, why you want to do what you want to do, and how you want to do what you want to do. So it is a kind of expression of interest. You are telling us what you want to do, why you want to do it, and how you want to do it. And of course, you cannot do it unless you are an expert. The second concept is variable. What is a variable? Now, the term variable comes from the word variation. And variation means difference. Differences between items is what we refer to as a variable. For example, age can be a variable because the individuals that will be involved in that study will be of different ages. Height can be a variable. Maybe you want to establish the relationship between the tall people and the short people, or the tall people and academic performance. Those will form your variables. We also can talk about motivation as a variable. We have internal motivation, we have external motivation. Maybe you want to relate the two, then they will form the basis of your variables. The last term that I would like to define at this point is the term thesis. And most students normally ask the relationship between thesis and project, or the differences between thesis and a project. Now, both of them, when you come to the university as a master's student, you'll be expected either to write a thesis or to write a project. What is the difference between the two? First, we can define the project or the thesis as a scientific paper that is developed by the students at the university for the purpose of completing their graduate studies. A thesis is normally linked to research work. It is grounded in scientific study. The project, on the other hand, is grounded in theory. So what we are saying is that the individual who will be writing a thesis will not have to take very many units in class, because this individual will have to spend more time in the field carrying out scientific studies. On the other hand, an individual who will be doing the project will be expected to spend more time in class grounding himself or herself in the theory. That is the distinction between a thesis and a project. But in either way, both of them are expected to be concrete, academic or scholarly written papers carried out of research. Now, how do you choose your topic? How do you choose your topic? As a master's student, you're going out to carry out research. How do you choose your topic? First of all, let us begin by defining the concept research topic. What is a research topic? We can define the concept research topic as a subject to be researched, or analyzed, or interpreted. It may be a problem to be resolved. The student has established that there is a problem somewhere and the student wants the problem resolved. That can form the basis for your research topic. It may also be an issue to be better understood. There is something that has been disturbing you over time and you want to understand it better and make the community understand it better. Then you go out to research on that particular issue. It may also involve conditions to be improved. There is an issue in the society or the community that has been very pertinent and you want the situation improved. Then you can form that, you can have that as your research topic. It may also be a difficulty to be eliminated, a thorn in the flesh that you want to remove from your community. That can be your research topic. But what is most critical is that your research topic must have, one, a subject. Secondly, it must have an object. It must also have a definite variables, and these variables have to be independent variable and dependent variable. It also has to have a population of study, and your research topic should not exceed 20 words. Normally it ranges between 12 to 20 words. That will be acceptable. For instance, you can have a research topic that states parents' socioeconomic status and its influence on Kenya Certificate of Education examination, Kenya Certificate of Secondary School examinations, or parents' socioeconomic status and its influence on academic performance in wherever you're going to carry out the study from, in Thika Sub-County, Kenya. Now, when you count those words, they do not exceed 20 words, and therefore that is an acceptable topic that you can utilize for your study. As you choose your topic, there are certain issues that you must be able to address. Make sure that you choose a topic that appeals to you, and it has to be appropriate to your course. For instance, if you're taking management or leadership in education, then that means that the research topic has to be related to either management or leadership in education. You are dealing with, you are specializing in early childhood education. Then your topic must be grounded in early childhood education. That is what we mean by the topic being appropriate to the course. It must also have sufficient material. We normally say that there is nothing original under the sun. But in your research work, we expect you to be as original as is possible. But we also have what we call replication. Like, for instance, a study has been carried out in Uasin Gishu. The same study can be carried out in Thika Sub-County, but you can utilize a different design or different instrumentations for the purpose of making it original and grounded in your own ideas. As you choose your topic, you can also develop it within a required time. We have longitudinal studies. Like, for instance, if you're carrying out a longitudinal study in primary school runs from class 1 to class 8. Then that means that you have to utilize 8 years for your study. As a master's student, you do not have that kind of time. And therefore, you must consider the time span that you have, and therefore that should determine the design of your study. You must also consider the cost of research. How much money are you going to spend in order to realize your study? We also have ethical issues. There are certain areas, certain places, and certain topics that might deny you of information. You must put that to perspective. Like, for instance, you cannot go and carry out a study in the armory. You will not be given that kind of information, and therefore you must be wise to ensure that ethical issues are observed. If you have to carry out a study with the little children, then that means that you need the consent of the parents. If you have to carry out in whichever place, it is required that you should maintain confidentiality. Therefore, you must consider the ethical issues that you're going to put into perspective in the process of coming up with your research topic. You also require certain skills. You must ask yourself whether you have those skills or not. And also, if it is advisable to carry out your study in areas where you can easily attract funds. We have a lot of funds, grants in the internet that can be offered for particular areas of study. So if you're wise enough, you should be able to go for the areas where you can be able to attract funds. But generally, it is expected that you should be able to choose something that will generate new knowledge. Your research has to generate new knowledge, because at the end of the day, we will ask you, what new knowledge has your study generated? You should be able to give us the new knowledge. Now, how do you identify your topic? We have the inductive reasoning and we have the deductive reasoning approach. You can identify a broad problem area that is related to your interest. For example, staff motivation. Motivation is very wide. So you start from the wide and then you narrow it. That is what we call inductive reasoning. Or you can start from the specific and then you develop it to the broad. That is what we call deductive reasoning. So your research topic should indicate what is to be investigated. It must also provide the subject that is to be investigated and the object that is to be investigated. The subject in this case will be your independent variable and the object will be your dependent variable. It must also indicate where the study will be conducted. If it is in Thika sub-county, Uasin Gishu sub-county, Mombasa sub-county, wherever it is that the investigation will be carried from. Your title should also indicate the target population, such as a research area. If it is to be carried out in secondary school, in primary school, in a teacher training institution, in a university, it should be well indicated in your title. Now, what are the sources of your topics? Where are you going to get this information from? Where are you going to get your topic from? First, you are going to go to class for a given duration of time. Have your eyes open. Make sure that you learn and inquire. That inquiry is what at the end of the day will enable you to come up with a research topic. You can get your topic also from your personal experience. Maybe you've been a teacher, you've been an education officer, and there are certain things that have been disturbing, and you can choose any of those issues to investigate or assess or analyze or evaluate or examine as part and parcel of your topic. You can also look at the existing theories, the theories that you're going to handle while in class, and maybe disagree that the theory does not work like that, or agree that the theory works like that and you want it to be more grounding, you want to improve on it, then you can take it as part of your topic. You can also look at a policy document that has been implemented in your institution, and utilize that as part and parcel of your topic. Now, in that case, you'll be assessing or evaluating a policy document. We also have literature sources. You also have your area of interest. You can also look into the current periodicals. We have library collections, and we have your course outline areas. All those can form part and parcel of the sources of your topics. Now let us look at the text, your project. You'll realize that it will be expected that your topic, your text, your project or your thesis should have first the preliminaries. The preliminaries are the initial pages that appear within the text, within the thesis or the project. Then secondly, we have the introduction. Then after the introduction, we have literature review, which is chapter 2. Then thirdly, we have methodology, which is chapter 3. Then chapter 4 will comprise of the data analysis, presentation, and interpretation. Some institutions refer to that as research, discussion, and findings. Then after that, chapter 5 will focus on discussion and results. And then lastly, we have the appendices. Now at this point, we must realize that every school has its own standard of research documentation. And your documentation will be provided for by the School of Education. In the Mount Kenya University Postgraduate Handbook, we have all the indications and the standards that are expected for postgraduate thesis or project writing. And therefore, it should not be difficult to follow that kind of layout. Now let us look at the layout much more in detail. You begin with a project, thesis. The first page is the title page. Now the title page comprises of the title of the study, the candidate's name, we have the legend, and we have the month and the year of writing for that particular thesis. Then secondly, we have the declaration page. In the declaration page, the individual, the writer, is indicating the originality of the work and declares that the dissertation is his original work. In the declaration page, the supervisor also has to acknowledge that actually the work has been done by his supervision. It has been done by the student under his supervision. Then thirdly, we have dedication. But the dedication, we only provide it for the final thesis or the final project, not in a proposal. And here you mention the names of the persons to whom the report has been dedicated. Then we have acknowledgement. This refers to the recognition of the mentors, the recognition of individuals who have supported you, the colleagues who have supported you, the institutions that have supported you. You indicate them as you acknowledge them. Then from there, we move on to the abstract. Abstract is also known as the executive summary. Now, this is a brief statement that gives the essential parts of a report. And what should be included in the abstract? It is a summary, and therefore all the elements have to be included, but in summative form. What is the characteristic of an abstract? An abstract is expected to be accurate. It must reflect the purpose and the content of the report. Then secondly, it is self-contained. All the abbreviations and acronyms that are unique in that particular project must be defined in the abstract, so that at a glance an individual will be able to understand the concepts that you are trying to relay to your audience. It also has to be concise and specific. That means that it should include all the lead sentences, but must be maximally informative. With the abstract, I should be able to know exactly what content is included in that particular report. An abstract should also be non-evaluative. You only report, don't evaluate anything in your abstract. Don't add any comment that is not necessary in your abstract. It also has to be coherent and readable. That means that you as a student must be able to write clearly. Use present tense to describe the results and the conclusions of your study. Now, when it comes to the thesis, then it will be expected that we should be able to use past tense because the activity has already been done. Then from there, we move on to the table of content. As you all know, the table of content is a summative of what is included in your research work. And therefore it includes all the content that you have included in your study. Now, those are the issues that will form part and parcel of the preliminary information in your research work. Then now from there we move on to Chapter 1. And the title of Chapter 1 is known as Introduction. Chapter 1 is the first chapter in your proposal or thesis. The distinction between the proposal or the final report, which could be a thesis or a project, is that the proposal is an intent and the thesis is the actual report. Therefore, the proposal is written in future tense, I will, while the thesis is written in past tense. Now, Chapter 1, basically known as the introduction, it provides an overview of the content that you're going to research on. Now, the first item will be an overview of the chapter. You will give us a brief of what is contained or what that particular chapter entails. Then from there, you will look at the background of the study. Then from the background of the study, you'll move on to the statement of the research problem. From there, you'll move on to the purpose of the study, and then you will look at the research objectives. After research objectives, you can have either research questions and hypotheses, depending on the concept that you are handling. From there, you can have the significance of the study, which is very important, after which you will provide the justification or the rationale of the study. You will also include the scope of the study, which in some cases is also referred to as the delimitations. And then you will look at the limitations of the study. You must also include the assumptions of the study. Then you will have the theoretical framework. You can also have the conceptual framework. And the end of Chapter 1 will be by looking at the operational definition of terms. I would like you at this point to note that in some cases we have the theoretical framework and the conceptual framework as part of Chapter 2 rather than Chapter 1. But at a glance, this is the content that will be included in the Chapter 1 of your proposal or Chapter 1 of your thesis. Then from there you move on to Chapter 2. Chapter 2, the title of Chapter 2 is known as Literature Review. And literature review refers to the work of other scholars, and they have to be related with your work, the concepts that you're dealing with. In literature review, you will begin by providing an overview of the literature by telling us the areas that your literature review will be derived from. And then from there, that will form the introduction of your literature review. Then from there, you will have theories, empirical literature review, theoretical literature review, and critical exposure of both the independent variable and the dependent variable. And the titles will be derived from the objectives of your study. That is very critical. And then from there, you'll provide a summary come conclusion of your literature review. And that will enable us to see the gap that your literature review would have established, which should be based on your study objectives. From there, you move on to Chapter 3. The title of Chapter 3 is Research Design and Methodology. This could also vary because as we amend and review our postgraduate handbook, we also amend the titles depending on the global standardizations. So Chapter 3 begins with an introduction, and here you're providing an overview of the content of Chapter 3. The content, we begin with the research design. Then from the research design, you will look at the locale, the study area. That is what we refer to as the locale of the study. Then from there, you'll give us the target population. What is the target population of the study? From there, we move on to the sample size and sampling procedures. And then we'll move on to the data collection tools or instruments. After which, we'll look at the validity and reliability of those instruments. And then we'll look at the data collection procedures, data analysis, and finish up with the ethical considerations. Now with chapter 3 comes the end of the proposal. So after chapter 3, it will be expected that you include the references, the appendices, and then the tools for data collection. If it is a thesis, then now you move on to chapter 4. And the title of chapter 4 is Data Presentation, Analysis, and Interpretation. And here you will look at the introduction and then break down the objectives and present the data based